Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday. Got agenda review. We're going to be looking at agendas for Wednesday, June the 11th. Looks like we do have a Sedgwick County Commission meeting. We also have a Fire District #1 meeting. So, Tom, take it away.
Good news is it's a fairly limited meeting as far as number of items, but Nicole, what are we going to talk about as far as county news to start with?
Good morning. For county news, we will talk about the traffic upgrades happening at 167th Street West and 21st. We will also talk about boating safety through Fire District 1. And then a reminder that offices are closed on June 19th, and that is a Thursday. And that's all I have.
Warning, we talked about that. Warning, it's going to be everybody. It's a 4-week.
Yeah, it's going to be just a quick, this is happening, the changes happened, reminder that the rubble strips are there and those kinds of things. We're getting ready to send out a news release and information today. Just another reminder for the public. Yes.
Well, it'll be an ongoing reminder too.
Okay.
Bring this up. So, right, Lynn? All right, we have into the agenda, we have a couple of appointments. The chairman has a couple of township appointments to make. That's it for appointments. I don't think we have any proclamations this time around. And the only new business item is bid board, but there are some heavy lifts on bid board just to kind of go through them very quickly. Item 1 is laboratory services. We have a number of departments in the county that use laboratory services. So this is a contract for all of these various departments and the bidder was selected. We have there's 6 items total. Item 2 is the 2025 recommended insurance renewal for risk management. Item 3 is significant. It is the emergency fire dispatch protocol system for 911 communications, which was part of what we were pledging to do as we move forward with 911 improvement. Item 4 and 5 are case-worthy client management systems for Department of Aging. Same vendor was picked for both items. And then number 6 is the big ticket item. That is the Ommenum tax software system upgrade. It's a $3.3 million $3.5 million contract. So I thought it was just worth noting, but those are the items. Any questions for staff on any of that or anything staff could get ready for Wednesday?
Yeah, Lindsay, could you give us a little bit of information on the tax system? And
so I would be happy to. So yeah, we knew that we were moving toward a tax system upgrade as of more than a year ago. An RFP was done basically to make sure actually there was no RFP done because this is Ommenum and we're sticking with that system. Excuse me for saying that. But one of the problems was we had to do basically what's called a fit gap analysis to see where there were issues because we're moving from an on-premises system to a hosted system. And that has a lot of great things that come with it, including what we just experienced a couple of weeks ago where the tax system was down. It was because it ran out of space, basically. Well, that's not going to be an issue when we're hosted. So that's just one example of many. It is a 15-year-old system. The issue becomes that when this came through TRB for approval, we had estimated the minimum cost of about $850,000 for the system, knowing that it was going to be more, but we did not know how much more because that fit gap analysis has not been done. Now that has been completed. And so what you will see in the text of that bid board item is that in addition to approving this contract, we're also going to ask you to approve a transfer of budget authority from the rainy day reserve, which is a specific reserve in your set of contingencies. This qualifies for that. And that would then pay for the gap, which is that total of roughly 3.5 million. So we know the project won't be done in 2025. It's a 21-month estimated timeline. So this likely will also result in next January, a request to you all to transfer however much is not actually spent this year into the Technology and Equipment Reserve Fund in order to finish out the project. So just know you'll hear this a couple more times. It's absolutely necessary. Again, just a reminder, Sedgwick County doesn't just do taxes for Sedgwick County. Sedgwick County does taxes for all 100 plus taxing entities, and this is how that's handled. It touches many of our elected and appointed officials. So there's not really a great other option at this point.
Other questions on that? It's been been a discussion I've had since before I got on the commission. So, I mean, this has been, we kind of knew this thing was coming. Is the total project cost 3.1 million, or is that?
I think the total project cost is, I think, right at 3.6 million, including the hosting component for a year.
Okay.
But we only had that 850,000 earmarked in TRB for this year. And so that's why it's necessary to do that additional budget transfer in order to get TRB the initial funding that's needed to pay for the contract.
I would just say that if anybody has any questions, I'd love to see if maybe Kelly Arnold was here, or Brandy, or even Tanya, but Brandy and Kelly use this system frequently. So if you have any questions, they're experts in what's needed, why it's needed. And Brent's back there too. I didn't see him. Sorry. So oh, there's Kelly Arnold right there. What's going on? Does anybody? That was interesting. That was good.
If there's any questions, I would try to answer my best. I know she did a good job on the money side. So
Any questions on the system and the needs, and get back into your magic door. Thanks, Kelly. Okay. Continue on, Tom.
That takes us to consent agenda. We have a number of items. D, E, F are all right-of-way easements for public works. The only fiscal note, item D is for a bridge replacement easement. Item E is for bridge replacement. Item F is 2 construction easements. I don't know what can possibly be left on North Ridge Road, but this is another construction agent for North Ridge Road. Okay. There is a fiscal note to that of $14,300. G and H are professional engineering services contracts with Trans Systems for a couple of road projects. G has a fiscal note. We are splitting that with Butler County. It's a total of 275, so our share would be half of that. And the fiscal note on item H is $105,000 on a. And Lynn, do you want to talk about H? That's protective overlay for ARC 95. You want to spend just a minute on that?
So yes, we have been working with our partners with ARC 95. The next step we have, in conjunction with getting ready for planning and environmental reviews, is to one of the goals is to apply a protective overlay similar to what we have for the Northwest Expressway that will allow us to have first dibs and opportunities to either purchase right away or purchase properties if need be before they would have a chance to, for example, develop or plat or things like that. We found with the Northwest Expressway, especially as soon as word got out that we were planning that expressway, several what we refer to as ghost plats appeared on planning. So platted land will sell more expensive than non-platted land. And there was no intention to plat the land, but they got a plat turned in, knowing that down the road that we get more money for purchasing that land. So this helps prevent things like that from happening when you start getting closer to the idea of maybe pursuing a project. And this will allow for us to get the right of way, the descriptions of all the right of way we're anticipating needing to have that put in, and then therefore we'll get notification when someone's selling their land or wants to voluntarily sell their right of way. No eminent domain or anything like that. It's going to be similar to ARC 90 or Northwest Expressway, and it'll be voluntary.
We have a visual map or anything where you can kind of just not specific parcels, but at least have an idea what we're looking at.
Yeah, I can provide that for you easily, no problem.
I and J are going to be renewals of a contract and a grant agreement. And I know Joan sent that email to you all with explanation of this too, and she's also Zooming. I is consideration of 2026 Substance Abuse Center of Kansas Crisis Bed Agreement. That's $500,000. And I believe that's Joan or Tim can comment here. J is a grant agreement renewal for Healthy Babies Program with the Health Department. And then K, and I know Adrian sent you an email this morning on that. K is an employment agreement, which you have already approved. It is an amendment. It's a little bit later start for the doctor than was originally planned, but that's already been approved by commission. And I know Joan had sent an explanation on that as well. L is some policy records updates, policy updates for records management system. Corey and Jennifer are here today if there's questions. I know they briefed you on this as well. This is also on the fire agenda, the one policy item on the fire agenda as well. And then M is our aging director hire above minimum request. We have a gentleman coming in to take that job. Sheena's not here, but he's starting soon, imminent. Okay. And then item N is a request to give an additional budget authority into the risk management fund of $1 million, I think, right? So. And the rest of the agenda on consent is routine plat and tax roll stuff.
Okay. Right, Commissioner.
I was just, I talked to Corey about this and I see he's back here, but one of my hopes was when we went to digital record keeping, we would essentially print our documents to PDFs rather than scanning them to PDFs. And it probably would require digital signatures, like DocuSign type signatures. And the intent of this was so that they would be searchable, rather than right now, when you look at a document, it's simply just a picture of the document and they're not really searchable. You can do an OCR, you can convert it back to text, but that doesn't actually work very well. There's errors that come up when you do OCR conversion. I just had a desire that if we were going to do it this way, we would simply really go to a better format for these documents rather than our current plan right now is we actually physically distribute those. People actually sign them when we want to scan the actual document with actual signatures. And that's not great for 2025, I don't think, anyway.
Corey, you want to talk about that? Or?
So at the moment, that process is department based. So each department, if they have a professional Adobe license, can do that process, and they can get the DocuSign software, but it's individualized. It's not countywide yet.
Because there's a cost to it.
Because there's a cost to it. The OCR, like you mentioned, is in place once it is scanned in. But if we're going to, for this particular policy, we're not there. We're not there yet. We're taking baby steps. In order to get there, we probably would need to look at a more broader purchase of Adobe than just individualized departments. And in addition to the DocuSign, but right now it is just each department, if they want it or need it, they can purchase it.
Well, anyway, these documents, in order to even find the document and to know to look for that image of a document, it requires all that on-base database to find stuff. If you don't know what meeting it happened on, or you want to go find the text, you have to go find it, and a non-official copy that's not signed, and you have to use basically on-base to go look for it. And then again, if you did this differently, I think there's an opportunity for the public to essentially get to a more public, more usable document that would be more where we want to be, I think, eventually. So I guess my thought is this the right step?
Scott is zooming in. Is this something, let me just look at TRB here for a minute. Is this something that we could look at and talk about in TRB as a way forward to migrate to potentially and get to where Commissioner Howell's.
I mean, just like with Office 365, where we set aside funds or the computer replacement, it's certainly something that if the organization wanted to pursue some kind of PDF Adobe license for everyone, that could certainly be run through a TRB process for 2027.
So with that in mind, is this a logical step, knowing where we want to be? Why would we make this change, knowing there's another change that needs to be made?
So we would want to make this change now because this is what is already being done within accounting, but there's no policy governing it. So if we're governing it, taking that next step would be an easier process.
And this is Kirk Sponsor, Deputy County Counselor. I think part of the question here is what we're trying to accomplish. And certainly I respect what you're looking at. This is big picture. This is improving efficiency, transparency, all that stuff. But really, I think, and I'll let Corey correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the focus on this initial policy was to streamline our duties and expectations under records retention. So we want some degree of uniformity with how we're preserving these documents if we're choosing to transfer them to electronic, making sure that they are being saved in specific locations that we can review and dispose of at later dates pursuant to retention policies, things of that nature. So I think the focus is more narrow in this situation, and it's just trying to accommodate our duties under state statutes more. Is that accurate, Corey?
That's correct. And in addition to that, this policy is not going to mandate that everybody transfer their paper records to electronic records. Paper records are still the official record, but if they want to convert to electronic records, this process is how they would do it.
So they have to retain both the original paper records and the electronic records are both going to be maintained.
For some time, the policy has a process if they want to dispose of those paper records after converting to electronic. But they don't necessarily have to keep them both congruently.
There are certain state statutes that address an openness to our government open records being preserved as electronic, even if they were physical. But there are some expectations that, hey, they must accurately reflect what the original copy was. And so like Corey said, departments don't have to necessarily follow this, but if departments are looking for a framework, this is putting the framework in place that would allow them to utilize a broader approach countywide.
My other question was this, maybe it's not the right time to bring this up, but when I talked to Corey about this, I was interested in knowing like where is the electronic records stored? Is it in the cloud somewhere? Is it multiple places? Is it which one is the official copy? Or are they both considered official copies if there's two copies of that? What about file naming? Is there some type of standard file naming so that we can find these documents? Is it organization-wide file naming protocol that we should be following for each agency, each department? So it brings up a lot of questions. I'm not so sure how mature this proposal is to get us where we need to be. And I think one thing is really, and I'm horrible about this personally, but when you become disorganized at the beginning, it's almost impossible to fix it down the road. So the best time to become organized is before you start.
So when we're looking at retention of records and production of documents pursuant to core and things of that nature, the custodian of records is usually viewed more directly as the head of the department. But if you look closely within this policy, they still have a lot of the inherent duties under statute for the production and keeping of these records. But this policy also implements a lot more participation by Jennifer Scriven, by our records management. So I think the goal is that they will be there for all of these processes to ensure some degree of uniformity.
Correct. As far as the storage of it goes, I believe OnBase is a cloud storage system. So it is in the cloud. Securities and protections are in place for accessing the records. If you're not in the security group, that information won't even appear to you.
I'm sorry, I have so many questions. Again, even storing these records, some of the stuff, it does have personal information on it. And they're stored in essentially a picture format. So I'm not sure there's any type of encryption. And there's also questions about firewalls and who has access and maintaining, control. And I'm sure it's all been thought through, but this has kind of come at us pretty quickly. We've not really had any BOCC discussion that I'm aware of before my short briefing with you and then of course today. So to me, there ought to be a vision of all these things ought to be thoughtfully, what are the questions? What are the answers? And are we ready to move forward? Is this the right next step? If this is all, sounds like we're going to do this because it's been proposed, we're going to do it, sounds like. But my questions, I think, are still valid. And I don't know if we have good answers to these questions. Maybe there are, but I'm not aware of what we're doing here. So.
Can you guys hear me? This is Scott Wagner.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. And thanks your analysis. And as we discussed in our meeting, I mean, you recognize there was a problem with the policy and it needed to be firmed up to the best we could. This is a great first step. It's not the total solution as Commissioner Howell is requesting, but I am all in favor of, we need to get this in front of us that it is. And I'm fully supportive that what you've done, you and your assistant to take this first step, which is a good one. Thank you.
Yep. Corey, thanks. I appreciate it. And I think this also has to do a lot with how we manage federal grants and ARPA. Like we need to have some consistency and have it memorialized in policy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions? Hey, Tom. No, go ahead.
Lynn, you might know on G and H, we reference it says trans system, but they've changed the name.
From a contractual standpoint, they're still being referred to as trans systems. They haven't gone over GFT yet.
AGH, they're like 3 initials now.
Yes, GFT, yep.
Go ahead.
That's it. Okay, anything under budget discussion? Just a reminder, commissioners, if you have anything you want to bring up to let staff work on, there's a line item on Wednesday's budget or Wednesday's agenda that we could, that you can say something publicly and we can kind of talk through that and then give staff some direction to vet it out. But Lindsay?
Can I just ask a clarification question? I think last year, in order to have the budget discussion, we said basically we needed to know by the Tuesday night before by 5. Is that something you all still want to do?
I do remember that. I'm sorry if I've left that out. That was helpful to your staff, correct?
Well, if we're going to run numbers or anything, yes, absolutely. It's hard to come prepared if we don't have it.
I would just say from the commission side of things, if you want some sort of specifics during this budget discussion, then Tuesday at some point by end of business, you got to make sure that you get that question in. If it's asking a question that you want future follow-up, then obviously that deadline doesn't exist. But this is just an opportunity to kind of formalize some things so nobody's caught off guard and we're giving the staff plenty of time. Anything under federal grants?
I'll mention 2 things that came up this morning. It's not a direct reduction from the feds, but KDHE has looked at WIC administration grants for the current year and identified departments across the health departments across the state that there's going to be a reduction. And we're still calculating what that means in terms of the time between now and September 30th, which is the federal fiscal year. So we'll have more information. It may take us a week to get that to present, but it's not a direct, I think it's a preemptive KDHE move rather than a direct response to the federal reduction. WIC funds have been identified in the draft budget that has been floated out there. Those funds are related to food. That money does not come through the health department budget. Money for food is in the KDHE budget. We get administrative money to run the program. And so there will be a reduction. We haven't quite figured out the implications yet. And then the other thing is that finance staff have worked on a risk assessment for the federal funding that we have. And we're going to start adding that to our agenda on Friday mornings to talk about the risk assessment, the risk level to the various grants that we've got going, but nothing concrete to announce, but some progress that we're making.
Okay, that's helpful. There was a comment made that $1 million was being put back added to the risk management budget? Was there a specific reason that's driving that or?
Yes, so certainly settlements that have been paid out. And in addition to what we expect our property insurance to be,
Insurance,
which
okay.
you saw that was a
Yeah, I
big board item. So it's just kind of what we anticipate we'll need in order to make sure the rest of the year is funded.
Okay, good answer. Go ahead.
Back to what Tim was talking about on that, for a long time there, maybe I haven't had an update on this in years, but we accepted a certain amount of money for administrative operation of the WIC program. And at the end of the year, we had to return that money back to the state. Any unspent money that we didn't actually utilize. And that number had continued to increase. And so there was at least 1 year where we tried not to take as much because we didn't feel like we needed as much. They were offering more money than we could possibly use. And so we were returning larger amounts of money back to the state. So we took less money. That was deemed as a WIC cut, which wasn't really a cut. It was just simply a reduction in how much money we needed to run the program. But since then, that got very political. And I was interested for a number of years there, how much money were we returning to the state each year? As this conversation about reduction of administrative funds happens, I guess I'd like to know, have we been returning money to the state? And if we have, do we have those numbers for the last a few years going back?
We'll work with finance to get those numbers. It's not uncommon for us to not spend the full amount of the allocation. They allocate for an entire full staff for 12 months. And we know that with turnover of employees, there's oftentimes when we don't expend every dollar that's been allocated. And so we'll get that information for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Tom, anything else on the agenda? Okay, I just want to give one last clarifying and an update to the commission since we're all here. On Tuesday, the mayor had invited me to come take part in a town hall between myself, the mayor of Wichita, and USD 259 school board president Diane Albert. 125, 150 people showed up. It's a good discussion. There's about 25 themes that KLC heard. KLC was the moderator. The city of Wichita had contracted, not Sedgwick County government, the city of Wichita contracted KLC to perform and moderate this town hall. They took a lot of notes. They're going to try to pull from what they heard in the town hall about, I said there was about 25 to 27 things that were emerged. They're going to try to pull together some themes and then share that. When I get that, my commitment was that I would share that with my colleagues and see if there's any discussion that we could have on that to see if there's opportunities to better collaborate with the schools and the city of Wichita in some of these areas where there's unique collaborative opportunities. We think of ComCare and the MHIT teams. Big conversations that came up were transit in regards to Wichita Transit and USD 259. So there were some interesting themes. Some of it was not as relevant to anything that we do at the county, but there were some things that I think my colleagues would probably find some interest in. So as soon as we get that and KLC gives those themes, I'll share that out so that everybody's on the same page. There will be a second round of a town hall. I'll keep everybody posted. I also want to make sure that you understand that in those types of settings that I made it very clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of the county commission or even Sedgwick County government, that I'm speaking just on behalf of myself. So, but these themes will emerge and I'll make sure that you're kept in the loop of everything that's going on there. And then we'll have a future discussion to see if there's anything that maybe we can, as a group and as a commission, that we can advance forward. So just want to make sure you're aware.
Other thing, I will be attending the World Air Show. And so I will, but I'm going to hopefully, it's about a 6-hour difference. So I'm going to try to zoom in for the meeting. Okay.
Okay. All right. Tom, anything else? Okay. Everybody have a great weekend. Oh, we do have a fire agenda. It's just policy, right? It's the item L from it's the same policy with Corey and Jennifer. Okay, good. All right, guys, have a good weekend.